Just record everything I say, because you never know when I'm going to say something interesting. Chances are it will be very interesting.
Hi, I'm Erin Tracy, and I have a crush on creative people. My guest today is Alex Korb. He's a professor at UCLA and a neuroscientist. I'm thrilled to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm so excited. He has a book and a workbook called The Upward Spiral. This book is actually why I have a creative crush on you. I think,
thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great resource.
The goal of the first book, in my mind, was more about explaining how your brain works and why the way the human brain is makes it likely to get stuck in depression or stuck in anxiety. Some of the problems that people encounter are best explained by, well, because you have a human brain.
I'm just a panicky person. It's true.
I mean, and
I wear it well, though. I mean,
no, that's good.
Right?
No. Well, that's what a lot of times they don't understand is like your depression or your anxiety is not the cause of all of your problems.
No.
And in fact, a lot of the characteristics that you have that make it more likely that you'll get stuck in anxiety or depression are not bad traits. Right. They're in fact very useful traits for most of your life. It's just given all the other traits you have plus the specific life that you're living, that it's getting in the way. I feel like the biggest thing that I wanted to convey to people, particularly in the first book, was like, there's nothing wrong with you.
No.
Like, a lot of it is just universal about being human.
I feel like, though, that's kind of like, we live in that age of being very fixie. I feel like everybody's got something about themselves.
And
physically, psychologically, the economy is driven on a lot of the solutions for all the things that you need to fix about yourself. And so this idea that some of these things that you already know about are like an approach to surviving in a way that feels holistic and supported for your brain, and that it's science, right? Like, I'm a person that I love science. That's why I have a crush on you.
Oh, well.
That whole idea of like, here's the math about it too, is really helpful, and that's why I'm glad you included the neuroscience in the book, because that's important.
To me, it seemed essential. What's actually changing your brain activity and chemistry? And I was like, oh, wow, like exercise, it actually often has more targeted and nuanced effects on like key brain circuits, more so than like antidepressant medications or other treatments.
Right.
It's funny too, like a lot of times when people hear me speak or they read the book, they're like, oh, I'm so glad you're so against medication. And I'm like, I'm not against medication. There's a whole chapter on it. This book is about like mostly about the things that you can do for yourself.
Right.
The problem with medication is not that it doesn't work, it's just that it doesn't work 100% for everybody all the time. But nothing does when it comes to depression or anxiety. But a lot of times people are thinking like, well, what's the one solution that's going to work for everybody, that's going to always fix me? And the answer is there isn't. Like, but there are dozens of tiny little solutions that if you just make this little tiny step, then it's going to cause small changes in the activity and chemistry of key brain circuits, which is going to make the next step a little bit more accessible. You don't have to solve it all at once. Like, you just need to make one tiny step.
I actually came back to this book recently because I was in graduate school, I was dancing hours and hours a day, and like, you know, now I'm a stand-up comedian. I've got a watch that reminds me to stand up. You know what I mean? I went from dancing 8 hours a day to like, I get a little buzz. It's like...
Does it remind you to be funny?
No.
No.
If only. No, it was like, you know, getting 8 hours of sleep at night because you have to now,
you don't have to do remember?
No, I mean, to survive if you're dancing really hard, to a certain extent, you...
Although I would say, I always reframe it for people.
Okay.
And I don't know if people get annoyed by that from me. I try not to do it to my wife too much.
Probably smart.
Because she's like complaining. And I'm like, honey, chapter 7, like, you just... Now, I don't say that.
It's probably smart. It's probably good.
But I do sometimes interrupt people whenever you say, I have to do this or I should do this.
I should on myself a lot.
Yeah, it's a common thing. You're not wrong. there's just probably also another way that you could think about it that would make you feel less crappy. Thinking about it in a different way doesn't solve everything, but a lot of times it gets you very far. Yeah.
But I went from that life. I went from that life to, you know, I stay out very late because I do stand-up comedy, and, you know, so it's a lot of the things that are in the book, my relationship to them has changed pretty dramatically since coming to LA. Yeah. Like, that's a question is, as a person that chooses to be busy, sometimes it does feel like, okay, well, based on the choices I'm making right now, 8 hours of sleep probably not going to happen for me, right? Yeah. Or at least definitely 8 hours of sleep maybe, but like definitely not the same bedtime every night if I'm on a midnight show and I get home at 2 in the morning, unless I become a vampire. Which maybe, which may, I mean, you can see how pale my legs are, so we're on our way there. But what are the things that feel like they're achievable within this lifestyle? And how do I make them feel, or how do I pave a way for them to be an easy thing to do?
So the easy thing to do is a sort of a key tripping point for some people. Because people always get confused that they forget that like feelings and actions are different things. And a lot of times we spend so much of our effort trying to get ourselves to want to do something when like you could just do it. But we'll spend like all this time trying to motivate ourselves and be excited. Like, you know, writing, for example. Like, I have to motivate myself to want to write. No. You just have to sit in front of a computer and type your fingers. And but unless you're clear about like why you're doing what you're doing, it's like very hard to derive happiness from it.
Do you feel that, is that like your personal opinion or like a neurological opinion?
Well, I'm a neuroscientist, so whatever I say about the brain goes. No, I would say it's both my personal opinion. But this is the problem. It's like I have a personal opinion, and then I go into the scientific literature, and I look around until I can justify that through science.
Just like an artist.
Well, it's sort of right. So the element of that's true is that when you don't really understand your motivation, then it sort of just feels like something that you have to do. Like you have some negative feeling, and the only way to deal with this negative feeling is to like go pursue this goal. Like I feel I have
through
to
action.
When you're like just take action based like as a way to fix your negative emotions, then it sort of makes your negative emotions decrease right now, but it sort of makes you addicted to that.
The loop of it.
Exactly, that you end up living your life sort of on autopilot because of the connections between the emotional circuitry in the brain and the habit circuitry in the brain. So I actually used to do stand-up comedy, by the way, when and I noticed a lot in performing at these like different rooms where it's just a bar that has comedy night one night a week, and you'd go in there and there's like, I feel like I noticed like a lot of comics would get angry at people for not laughing or paying attention to them.
I'm watching football.
And I had this epiphany of like Jerry Seinfeld or Chris Rock was in here. If people didn't laugh, they wouldn't care. Because they have a clear idea of like why they're doing it.
Well, they might try to win that audience, they would try right? Like that would be.
But that's it. Yes, they would try to make the audience laugh. But they wouldn't get angry at the audience for not laughing.
Maybe.
Well, but I think if you need the audience to laugh, then it's not a choice, and it's harder to be satisfied by. The uncontrollable things don't bother you as much once you've a clear idea of why they are doing it. In order to be a famous comedian sustainably, you have to have bombed
so much.
Multiple times.
I don't think you ever fully divorce yourself from that because that kernel of humanity of like caring about that guy in the back laughing is what makes you good at it.
Well, but if your goal is to actually make that person laugh, then you getting butt hurt by it isn't gonna help. Get over yourself, buddy.
Well, I agree with you, but I think that's easier said.
Of course it's easier said than done. Everything I say is easier said than done. That's why I say it.
I think that's the best case scenario, but I also think in practice, I bomb and I don't sleep that night. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I have to write all the things I learned down, like I'm in 5th grade, to be like, here are the things I learned today. It's research, and I know that, but there's still, I think in order to have that killer instinct, to a certain extent, there still has to be something on the line there.
Right. Huh. One of the that just reminded me of I remember reading this fascinating article about eye contact in dating profiles, and that for women's pictures, if they were smiling but not looking at the camera, men thought they were less attractive or less likely to click on them or reply. Because the implication is that when you look at the picture, if you're a guy, you're like, she's smiling, but at somebody else.
Yeah.
Whereas it's when she's looking at eye contact, directly at the camera, then
she's smiling at me.
She's smiling at me. But for women, it was sort of the opposite, that if a guy was looking directly at the camera, you're like, ooh, this dude, chill out. Whereas if he was smiling somewhere else, just engaged with the world, you're like, oh, that's an interesting guy.
What's he smiling at?
Exactly.
Mystery man. So we have questions. What's your go-to karaoke song?
500 Miles, perhaps.
Would you sing a little part of it for me?
And dum da dum da dum da dum da da.
Welcome to the show, Neuroscience Karaoke. I love it. If you could lead a revolution, what would it be called?
Oh.
Would it be called the upward
spiral? It's really about accept yourself for who you are. And I actually I was like, I need to come up with a catchphrase or something to describe this. And I came up with neuroauthentic happiness.
Yeah.
The idea of understanding your brain and accepting yourself for who you are so that you can be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Because there are parts of your brain that you can't change, and nor would you want to, because you'd just be a different person.
Yeah.
And the key is understanding what are the parts that you can change and do something about that, and what are the parts that you can't change, and just accept that about yourself. And I just people have to go through so much. I know, but people, it's not easy or straightforward. It's you got to stumble through it.
Yeah.
There's so much unnecessary unhappiness and suffering because people just don't accept themselves for who they are.
What do you do to replenish your creative juices?
Exercise is a big one. I hate exercise just for the sake of exercise, and that's even in my book. I was I using the word, telling people that exercise is difficult, but really just move your body. And what are some forms of moving your body and interacting with the world do you enjoy?
I'm glad you brought that up. When was the last time you danced?
It has been a while. I mean, I probably danced with my 3-year-olds. Maybe that was but not dance for real.
Would you dance with me?
Sure. I haven't done swing dancing forever. It was cool for a few years, from 96 to 2000.
Yeah.
It's funny, that very narrow
but it was wildly popular
of time, and it was, and that's how I met my girlfriend in college.
My college boyfriend was a swing dancer. Yeah. Lifts are very important. Would you say you've made any sacrifices to live this life, to be a creative person, to be generative?
You've heard the phrase, happiness is a choice?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people misinterpret that to mean, you can just choose to be happy.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think that's terrible, because therefore, if you're depressed or miserable, people blame it on you. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
But happiness is a choice in the sense that you can't choose everything, but at any given moment, you could choose the thing that makes you happy.
Yeah.
But there's also a choice between, what happiness are you talking about?
Right.
Do you mean the thing that will make you happy right now, or the thing that will make you happy over the next year?
Right.
And that is where a lot of people feel stuck. A lot of times the thing that makes you happy right now is actually moving you away from the thing that's going to make you happy in the long run. And so to really be sustainably happy, you have to think about like, well, what are the things that I'm willing to be unhappy for?
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming to Creative Crush.
Thanks so much for having me.
Alex Korb, and you were awesome. Thanks for watching this episode of Creative Crush with Erin Tracy. Now's your chance to like, subscribe, click the little bell button thing, follow us on social media so that, this relationship can be mutual. Go make things.